Yes, we have just finished watching Star Trek The Motion Picture. We have been here for the last 2 hours watching the cinematic masterpiece that was that.
Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. No, sorry.
Okay.
The cinematic movie, Star Trek I, the motion picture.
The cinematic piece. Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen. Yeah, we've just finished watching. We watched specifically the director's edition, so that was remastered. I can't remember when. It's like 2009, something like that. And there were a few differences. There was definitely. I heard some positive words when I was watching it for you guys, because I was fully expecting a full horde of slating, which I'm sure will soon come. But this was my draft pick from the draft. So this was released on the 7th of December 1979. So if you're not aware of the convoluted history of the motion picture and how it came to be after Phase 2 was cancelled, I very much recommend going to the Roddenberry Archive and watching their Phase 2 documentary on there, as well as a few other ones. It's a really in-depth look at sort of how the production of the original series was starting to come back, and people saying, let's do a TV show, and then they went, actually no, let's do a movie, and then things spiral forward. So we won't go into that complete history here. But this was directed by Robert Wise, who's better known for other things, including West Side Story, The Andromeda Strain, The Day the Earth Stood Still, and also from 1944, The Curse of the Cat People. Maybe not as well known, but that tickled my fancy when I was reading through IMDb on it. He was also a Saturn and Hugo Award winner. I've actually misspelled that on my notes. He's a Saturn and Huge Award winner. That's meant to be Hugo. The story was done by Alan Dean Foster. Alan Dean Foster is very much known as a novelist, having done a lot of Star Trek logs and novelizations of this film, as well as 2009 Into Darkness, and just a very sort of prolific writer in his own right, to the point where he had to actually fight with a tribunal against Gene Roddenberry to try and get a writing credit on this film, because as Gene Roddenberry is, he did a usual amount of script fiddling to try and get his way on the script and his credits.
Yeah, Alexander Courage knows a lot about that, doesn't he?
He does indeed. Screenplay itself was done by Harold Livingston, who was a creative producer just for Phase 2, but sort of transferred over here, who did some stuff for Mission Impossible, which starred Leonard Nimoy, and Barbary Coast, which starred William Shatner, which I have absolutely no knowledge of until I read it on Memory Alpha just now, but I've never heard of the Barbary Coast. Gentlemen, how are we feeling about Star Trek the Motion Picture? The first film actually, if you don't count Section 31, but we don't really count that as anything. The first film that we have reviewed on this channel, the first Star Trek film.
All right. I'll take the lead on here. So this is not only Idol's draft pick, but his first round draft pick. So I am suspending all my broad shots at this. I respect how much you love this movie. I feel like I need to watch it again, actually, because there's a lot in here that I think takes a while to sink in, to understand why they did certain things, certain reactions, certain acting choices. But for a motion picture, I think it fits. Very sweeping. I mean, the visuals are the thing that stand out, not only the big space shots, but you know, when they're actually on V'ger, that set, the little bridge dissolving, when they switch to red and show everything in the background, like almost every shot is a unique, interesting view on things. And so, you know, I'll let Dan and Stars slag on it. I'm not here for that today. I think it's an interesting movie, and one that I don't think even though I've seen a couple times, still have appreciated fully. But I think it does fit in the number one slot as they jump to the silver screen.
Yeah, this isn't your summer blockbuster. This is a statement. This is a comfort movie. Just watching it with y'all and having the time to reflect on what's happening in between the lines, it kind of worked. It was certainly a little bit padded and drawn out in spots. We pointed out a couple of areas where it was a little bit tough to get through, but I think on the majority they used the blank space effectively. And that's kind of strange to say for something that was following up on Star Wars, which was absolutely just action, thrill a minute. And so this is a really very bold proclamation that Star Trek is still in it for the relationships in the story and not necessarily the spectacle. And a lot of this movie was special effects shots. Without the visuals, it'd be a very short movie. Because I think the teleplay is probably maybe 3 or 4 pages. So there's.
I will say that two films that were probably directly inspirational, like theming and pacing wise, were probably Close Encounters of the Third Kind and also 2001: A Space Odyssey, which was also a very drawn, long film with a lot of emphasis on effects and model work. I think that was probably the closest relation. They probably went, hey, what can we get this kind of style for Star Trek that might work? Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, modern science fiction was finding its footing. You're right, and so this is it's a transitional piece, and there's elements to be respected from coming out of the '60s, and you have to remember too that even in the era we still had even on TV Battlestar Galactica, just a very kind of methodical and I'd say slower paced show. There's a lot of action that they managed to get in there to work up to the commercial breaks. But for a movie to take this approach, I think is really brave, and it was interesting to watch. And in hindsight, after one of my favorite series is Next Generation, no secret there, and it takes its time too, in the same way that this movie does. So I find it hard to really hate on the pacing of this movie when it's something I appreciate so much about Next Generation. I've held the floor enough. Stars, you go. So.
So I will say that this has easily been the most enjoyable time I've seen the motion picture. That's not just because of the company, it is also because the director's cut, despite apparently being 4 minutes longer, does not feel longer than it does
really?
feel noticeably trimmed down compared to the theatrical cut. I had a look at some of the stuff that they added back in and what they cut, and it's like they made the correct choices, I think. And this did move more sprightly than the original. That being said, I still would not classify it as a fast film. And it is interesting that, it is a transitional piece because you're moving from the original Battlestar Galactica into a space where Alien came out the same year, Star Wars had come out 2 years beforehand, and Empire Strikes Back was like a year or two away. We hadn't yet had Aliens. It's in a weird sort of space where sci-fi was still very much a niche product enjoyed by nerds and didn't really have as much, I'd say, cross-market appeal as it does now, certainly, or even back in the 80s. That being said, I think it still has a lot of the same issues of... You mentioned, it's not as much on spectacle. I think it kind of is in spectacle, but just of a different kind. I think 2001: Space Odyssey is the most applicable comparison. I think that was explicitly what they were going for. But I think that 2001 is just made by someone who kind of has a very specific vision of what they want the cinematic language to convey.
That's good.
It wants you to feel tension and a lack of comprehension, and everything is very stark and very... the visual language is unquestionable, but you have to take a little while to really let it sink in. Whereas here, it's I kind of comprehended a lot of what was going on almost instantly. Okay, cool, we're passing through thresholds, we're moving inside an organism, and then it's cool. And it's one of those things, it was improved by the director's cut. There were definitely sequences that were less stately is the word I'll use.
You're being so diplomatic. I've never heard that. Usually you go for a full this was... I feel like you're holding back. There's something inside you here.
I'll get into the nitty gritty of it, because I'm trying to do a compliment sandwich here, and it's a case of I think it is slow, but it's an intentional choice it's making. And I will say that in terms of the competing visions of what sci-fi should be at the end of the 80s and the beginning of the at the end of the 70s and beginning of the 80s, I can see why this was a vision that was offered. That being said, I'm glad it was not the vision that was ultimately chosen for the for the cultural media landscape, as it were, because I think this is kind of outmoded in a lot of ways. This is still very much of the 60s and of the 70s, and it just doesn't quite hold up in my mind.
It's interesting. I keep coming back to why I like this film so much for myself. Because you're right, there are, and watching this with you guys, and it's always that thing, like, when you play a song to someone, like, no, the good bit's coming, just wait, here comes a good bit, 2 minutes in, you're like, there it is, and they're just like, oh yeah, great, bye. And it kind of felt like a bit like that with certain scenes in this. I was just like, yeah, I know this is a bit long, and like this the awkward part where the little shuttle pod's taking a good 60 seconds to do a 3-point turn before it comes back,
That was
or
hilarious.
other little bits like that, and I'm just like, yeah, no, I can see why people, say this is like a bit of a slog to get through. There are some like choices where they just spend too much time on shots to, whether it's to extend, it doesn't feel like they're doing it to extend runtime. It just feels like Dan said, it's a bit more of an experiment to play in that space. The other thing I think as well is like, this is this early sci-fi cinema, but we're also talking about, we haven't seen Star Trek in probably nearly a decade at this point, or coming up to. It's been a while. It's a big event. Star Trek's really hit its stride with sort of like the second run of its shows, getting a second wind, and people coming and seeing this spectacle. Yeah, a lot of people were probably disappointed because of how it went, but there's probably people very excited just to see these guys on the screen, and like coming back to seeing Shatner coming back and just being Kirk. There was no hesitation. Straight away, he came on, he was Kirk. Spock was Spock. McCoy, the same characters. There was no... it didn't feel like it was a retcon or a redo. They were just these same characters in a different space. And it was a gorgeous, very good visual space. I love... we were bragging on it a little bit as we were watching it, but like, I love when they do the fly-throughs over Vija, or when they're going through the clouds, just little bits of parts where it feels very alien, it feels very unknown, and I've spoken about this before when we've spoken about the motion picture, but Star Trek is at its best is when it pushes a little bit of the boundaries at times, and when it does a little bit of the advanced sciences like magic to people, but in this way it feels like it's a little bit more earned, because this they kind of go through a bit more of like, oh, it's they explain it a little bit better, and this is just a very advanced being that's very much a threat through a misunderstanding, and it turns out to be the human journey after all. I could go on for quite some time about this, but would you like to know?
It's your choice, so you wax as long as you want.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. I just love this film. This film, because we can talk about box office here, because we haven't actually been able to talk about that before. This did very well. This actually broke records at the time for getting the most amount of profit for the time. Domestically, it made over $82 million. Worldwide, it's $139 million. After inflation, that's $370 million, which is on the same level as Passion of the Christ, Spider-Man 2, The Batman, Return of the King. So, very profitable film. On a budget of only 35, I say only 35 million. That was a huge amount at the time. It's one of,
I was going to say like that. That's a lot. Of
nowadays, that's just like they spend that on like one episode of The Mandalorian or whatever. But
that's right.
Well, I mean, so if you check out Memory Alpha's page on this movie, it's the longest one I've seen personally. It's just pages and pages and pages of all the behind the scenes. One of the things they talk about are all the different accounting numbers they used, anywhere from 15 to 50 million. The latter number includes. Yeah. All the phase 2 stuff that got scrapped, but they ended up using some of it, and they just rolled that into the accounting number for the movie. So, yeah, 20 to 25 is like the ballpark of what they ended up settling on, but I've heard lots of numbers in that regard.
We were talking a lot about it as well.
And the thing is...
Oh, sorry, go on. No.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I think that in terms of the movie's look... everything is a very deliberate choice. There is very little that looks like cheaper because it was like half-assed. I think everything is a distinct aesthetic choice, and certain aspects of it have aged really, really well. I think like the actual rec room set and like the very clean, open look of that is very neat. I love all the miniature work, obviously. The bridge with like just a change in lighting becomes the Wrath of Khan bridge, which I think it speaks to a good design. It's just if it needs a bit of change in lighting. But there are certain aesthetic choices that do not hold up, which is stuff like the costumes.
Yeah.
And it's just like I could rag on the costumes if I wanted, but I think it's plainly that they just don't work. They don't look particularly interesting. They look very drab. But what struck me most is that even though they had improved the pacing in this director's cut, it's still so dialogue sparse. There are so many scenes where characters are reacting to things. They are we assume having thoughts about what they're going through and what this means for the human experience, but they don't really articulate most of it. And it's a case of, do I expect incredibly deep philosophical questions from Chekhov? No, not necessarily. That's not really his role. He's a security officer. He's a tactical guy.
Absolutely, I will not interfere with it.
But here's the thing, right? Is having different perspectives and different people chiming in on what they think they're seeing is half the fun of Star Trek. It's like we always make fun of the tendency of TNG to just like shout conference whenever you don't know what to do in a scene, so you can move the plot along. But those scenes are always great because it's turning your principal cast into a brain, and they're all working out what's going on. And we have most of our principal cast on the bridge. In fact, McCoy repeatedly keeps on coming up to the bridge.
He comes up, he leaves, he comes back up again.
And it's like, well, the entire reason that I think people respond, part of the reason that people responded to TOS so strongly back in the day was because you had a lot of people like having very, very strong opinions about things, like Kirk and Spock's relationship, and then Spock and McCoy's relationship. Like the trio is like arguably the binding glue that makes TOS work, and the trio don't interact all that much in this movie.
You get like one scene, really, don't we, when Spock first comes on board. That's kind of the best
2
point.
or 3, and it's like the TOS, like the worst TOS movies, which I think is this and Final Frontier, both make them the choice of, we're going to separate these characters out, and then when they bring them together, like Final Frontier, what's the best part of Final Frontier? It's the bit where they're all talking and like going through the cyborg like experience, which is like sounds like a band. And it's because you want to see them all talk about it and come at it from their own perspectives and with their own histories and their own pains, which is like the key to Final Frontier. And it's like here, I don't know what McCoy really thinks about a lot of all this. He just kind of goes, "It's a baby, it's a living machine," and it's just like, well, tell me, like, elaborate on that. What do you think about this as a doctor? Do you think that like this thing has like a life of its own? Does it like what kind of? A lot of this is all just like shoved into the last 10 minutes, and it would have been like more interesting to, even if it's the wrong idea, just throw out an idea so that I can assume that there's something going on behind the eyes, because as it is, it's a lot of people just going.
There were a lot of reaction shots, definitely.
Yeah, Stars, you've sidled up to something that's my one main overt criticism of the movie. So we rightly criticize all the time Star Trek and other shows that will tell and not show. Here's a movie that is all show. The entire thing is just showing, but the only thing they're showing is just model shots. And then when we need somebody to explain what the hell we're looking at and what we're experiencing and what we're going through, instead we just get people restating the obvious, and exposition virtually non-existent through the middle half of the film. We just are kind of exploring it, and it was a concession, right? There's a sense of wonder to this film. This is what Star Trek brings to the table: is exploration, wonder, the unknown. And so in trying to, I think, capture that for the movie and let the audience experience what the bridge is experiencing, it's okay for a certain amount of time, but after the 45 minutes just standing on the bridge bolt upright looking at a view screen, it's like, all right, well, we're doing the same thing. We're sitting in the damn audience looking at the movie screen trying to figure out what the hell's going to happen next, and you're not giving us any sort of clue whatsoever. We're just going through orifice after orifice after wormhole after wormhole, and it's just man, I Overtired in chat rightly called out, this is a phase 2 script that was just stretched out. If you think about a 42-minute script stretched out to 2 hours and 13 minutes, and wow, I mean that's an awful lot of padding, and we certainly got it. So
yeah, because it's one of those things where, like you mentioned, we're being put in the perspective of the crew of the main cast. But the problem is that I am not a scientist. I am not a security officer. I am not a comms officer. I am not a fully trained Starfleet officer who would be presumably trained to give an opinion on these things from any of these different perspectives. And instead, they're all just sitting there as slack-jawed as I am, waiting for something to happen. And it's just like, that's not really what I want out of my cinema. I want my characters to act intelligently and to throw out ideas and at least look like they're thinking. And it's all just kind of thrown onto Spock. Spock is just given every line of exposition.
Hmm.
Like, think of, like, even just in Undiscovered Country, like, I know that, like, Shatner by that point was clawing every line he could off of anyone else, but at least Uhura gets to say, well, at least that's the thing's got to have a tailpipe. There is no moment like that in this, really, where someone has a moment of inspiration of, oh, this is what it is. It's like the closest you get is Kirk rubbing off some oil grease that's on Voyager's like nameplate and realizing. And even then, the rest of it has to be kind of handheld to him.
Yeah.
It's just...
Speaking of, Oh, sorry, go on, Otto. You go first.
Let me try to pull this all together because I think we all have similar impressions of this aspect of the movie. Idol, you said the people came to the theater to watch the relationships, their heroes. And that's true. I mean, that's the main criticism that Nimoy had of the movie is we didn't feel like we got around to the relationships that made the original series. Stars, you said, and I pulled up the transcript. Sorry,
Don't wait for the translation.
Self-referential like a big douche. But when we did Corbomite Maneuver, you said, which side of Star Trek do you come down on? The high-concept sci-fi exploration of the unknown, like the motion picture, or human interaction through a space naval lens, like Wrath of Khan? And you can do both. When I watch certain episodes of Strange New Worlds, especially this last season, it's like, okay, they're stripping out all of the high-concept sci-fi they can to squeeze in more human drama interaction. But you can't, but then this one goes in the opposite direction where, like you said, people are saying nothing and we're just enjoying the sci-fi, and it's like you got to have a balance. And a lot of people have said, well, it's too much of the shots, too much of the exterior, too much of the visuals. I don't think it is. I think it's just not enough of the other. And when we watched, Spock is in his little booster seat and he's about to fly into the anus. And Stars said, he's narrating as he's going, and Stars was like, well, where was this earlier? You can have the narration, the inner monologues as we're going through this thing. You can still have the people enjoy the visual that you paid for, but hold our hand just a little bit. I mean, you don't need to dumb anything down, but hold our hand as we go through it. Let the voices be heard. And I think, instead of going, it's not really a teeter-totter. You don't want to go all the way in the other end. Just give with both hands, because you can. I mean, the best parts for me were the Kirk, Spock, McCoy. I hate to be reductive, but like, I need you, and like, all right, I watched 3 seasons plus the last 10 years while it's been in cancellation. I love these characters. This is what I want. Give us a little bit of that with all the high concept stuff, and kind of try to blend it together.
You invoke Strange New Worlds, and I think that's a really great comparison here, because in Strange New Worlds, especially in season 2, one of the things that really made that season excel was how they would present a concept and do 2 or 3 variations on that theme. Lost in Translation, a great example of 3 different groups: the engineering group, the bridge group, and the away group, all learning how to communicate in their own ways. And we didn't have that. There were no away teams. There was no divide and solve a problem. It was all just everybody standing around waiting for somebody else to do something, and we just didn't get any of that insight. And there was one small glimmer of development that happened in sickbay when Spock is recovering from his experience, and he has this self-actualization and realization. And this is the high point in the movie, because it's the only real character development that we get. And it's the only time in the movie where we actually understand that there is a variation on the theme, that Voyager's journey of self-actualization and connecting with humanity is Spock's journey. But we only got like maybe 4 minutes, maybe even less, in the sick bay of him acting like the Spock we know and love from the original series, before he's right back on the bridge, standing bolt upright, just delivering lines again. And what a missed opportunity that was. I mean, that should have been the beating heart of this movie, is Spock's journey from trying to purge all emotion to embracing it again. And instead, it's a footnote, and what a shame.
It is.
Well, I will say, I do feel like that moment kind of, his character does take a turn, and it starts, back when he's in sickbay, the emotion, and he drops a little bit of the extreme Vulcan stoicism, which makes sense in the first half. He's come back from Vulcan, and I think that is kind of the turning point. But it's not accentuated enough.
Yeah, I think like it takes a couple. It took me a couple of watches of this, and as you know, I've watched this film a few times to sort of like you pick up these various points, especially if you're watching on your own or you're sort of casually watching it, and you don't realise that that it's a little bit of Spock's journey, it's the human journey, it's about evolution, it's about finding yourself. He's just trying to find himself, and it could have been a Kirk story. It could have been very much more of a Spock story. It's not even really a Kirk story, even though it starts off as it, because he kind of has his little bit of confrontation with Decker. It's not even really a Decker story either, because he kind of comes out of nowhere, gets a bit pissy, and then ascends to godhood. Yeah, you're right. It takes a few. You realise that actually you want a little bit more of that, and that actualization of Spock at the end, kind of going like, "Oh yeah, I finally understand." After all these sort of weirdly unexplained telepathic moments, but who knows? Vulcans are freaky like that. That's just what they're into. Yeah, I kind of do concur on a lot of these points. A fun random aside. I've been doing a little project recently that Otto knows all about. That I've been doing word counts.
I know that you've been doing it. I don't know why you've been doing it.
I don't know why I've been doing it either. I've got a fun word. Fun fact, this is the second least spoken of the Star Trek movies. To believe it or not, there is less dialogue in one other Star Trek film. Do you know which one that is? What film do you think has less dialogue than this one?
Oh, I know.
Oh, yeah.
Is
I
it
might have
09?
told you. Sorry?
Is it 09?
It's not 09.
Can't be, no. It's got to be Search for Spock?
Correct. It is The Search for Spock.
Really?
Has less dialogue than this film. It has that has 5,959 words, and this has 6,690. More fun word facts will be coming throughout the show. In the meantime, gentlemen, I want to hear your...
Bread.
What was your bread of the episode? Let's start with you, Otto. Otto, you haven't talked enough. I need to hear you talk more.
Actually, I had a couple points to make, but you've moved us along.
Oh, no. Feel free. Incorporate into your bread. That's your assignment.
I'll get back to it after the
Okay.
bread. Gosh, I haven't. Like I said, I kind of feel unequipped to discuss this without. I feel like I should just watch it again because there's so much that I haven't internalized.
It's a
yet.
big film.
And I know that doesn't sound like a fun exercise to most of you, but I actually didn't dislike the movie.
My work.
Whatever.
I will take this high praise. My work has succeeded.
Let's try to be funny. It's Ilea, like the Kool-Aid man crashing through the wall for no reason.
Oh yeah.
One of
just
three
blasts
comedic
through.
beats in the entire movie.
Yeah, you see McCoy standing behind. He's like, "What's going on?" I don't know a purpose that served, but I do remember that about the movie. So,
Just like bread. Go Stars.
bread.
Belay that phase order. Guess what? Like there are very few parts of this movie that I will carry through with me into my daily life, but I will regularly quote that at Brody and Marie just to make them laugh because of how stupid it is. It's memorable. I will not forget it for as long as I live. I just wish I knew what the point was.
It was a weird scene. It's definitely, you realise it stands out
Well-
to sort of show Kirk's arrogance. It's a little bit what we see in that bad Strange New Worlds Kirk episode that none of us liked, where it's like Kirk going like, "No, I'm in command. We can do this." And in
Slot
fact,
that ate its tail, which is extremely similar to the motion picture.
yeah, but it kind of sort of like
So-
it was delivered a bit too quickly. I feel, or not quickly. It was delivered a bit too.
Weirdly.
It's unearned, kind of that whole episode.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So like we were talking about, like Kirk kind of lacks an arc in this movie, and they kind of have to pretend he has one, because in Wrath of Khan, he explicitly doesn't take command from Spock. He's very, very deferential, and it's very obvious if you watch like this and Wrath of Khan that he wants to avoid a Decker situation where it's like it's obvious that he's like cock of the walk, he's
We wanted to
arrogant,
avoid that.
he steals the rank, and it's unearned. But the problem is, and it's like Wrath of Khan can actually pretend that he learned something from that because you don't really see him learn anything in this movie.
No, it kind of there's the start of an arc with him and Decker and things like that, but they just kind of drop it as soon as they kind of get to V'ger, and then that's it. Yeah,
he bumbles into success. Like almost nothing that Kirk actually does in the movie really propels things along, other than him telling Decker, by the way, you kind of got to make nice with the thing that's wearing the skin suit of your dead girlfriend. The rest of it he doesn't really do. Like in terms of interaction, what does he do? Does he wipes off the thing on the plate? He kind of prompts Spock a little bit. It's like anyone else kind of could have done this. And even though Decker, guess what? We were shitting on him relentlessly because Stephen Collins is the monster. But the character as written and presented is a perfectly nice guy who didn't really do anything. He didn't do anything to
I like the character, and like I said when we were watching along, it kind of makes Kirk look like a douche at the beginning.
Yeah. And Decker is right. In every call he does, he saves the Enterprise. But because we're naturally inclined to see Kirk as the hero, we're like, well, who's this douchebag? I don't know him. We're introduced to him in a scene in which he's knocked down in rank so that Kirk can feel important. And right before Kirk then proceeds to murder 2 crewmen. And it's there needs to be a moment where he and Decker really actually come to terms. And the closest you get is oh, I hope your nurse made me through this. And then it just gets kind of dropped. And there's a moment where he just starts randomly calling Kirk Jim, and it's so unearned. You don't get to call him that because you haven't formed an actual rapport.
What are you going to do, demote me? Well, okay.
Well, give me inspiration, why don't you? There was room for a Kirk arc here, but it just doesn't happen. And McCoy gets butt fuck nothing. He literally gets brought up to do what? He got reserve activated to do what? He does a scan that Chapel could have done. He doesn't get to treat Chekhov on the bridge. He needles Spock a little bit.
He's
but
supposed
most
to be
of Spock's stuff is handled on his own.
He's supposed to be sort of Kirk's conscience, really. That's the best part of McCoy. He's supposed to be that demon or angel on his shoulder that's constantly sort of berating him and getting him. And it almost happens with one scene in sort of whatever that weird room was where they were standing and with a over large 4K game screen that they had just showing Chekhov's giant face. But yeah, kind of nearly happens there when he kind of talks to him about sort of his interaction with Decker, but it's not on the same level.
Is that the best explanation, best description of the motion picture there is? You sit around waiting for something to nearly happen.
Dan, bread.
Yeah, that was an awful lot of bread stars. Is there anything left in the loaf here? I don't know. Yeah, when Spock finally boards when Spock boards the Enterprise, the only moment in the entire movie that we get a real glimpse of how wonderful Nichelle Nichols can be is the moment when Spock enters the bridge, and all she has is just this little gasp. And I'm not even sure if it was scripted. It may have just been just her ad-libbing for the scene, but it was just so precious and heartfelt, and it's the only glimpse we get of, apart from her just playing telephone operator for the rest of the movie. So
yeah, because I think of that, and I think of the fact that going back to TOS again, there's a lot of unspoken respect between Spock and her. He absolutely respects her as a professional, and will play along with her in musical ways. And absolutely none of that is present. But she's also not allowed to comment on the fact that it's not present. It clearly shocks them all when she comes onto the bridge, and that he's so cold and removed from them. But none of them say anything, and it's well, you kind of want them to say something.
There was that one scene somewhere vaguely in the middle. Sorry, I can't pick it out. Kirk comes to the bridge, Sulu gets a line, and then Uhura gets a line, and then Chekhov gets a line, and it's
you check off the list.
Yeah.
So I know you have your bread yet to come, Idle, but let me ask you guys quick: would this be better if they just cut out Decker and Ilea, put one of either Sulu or Chekhov in the role? Kirk has to relieve them. Maybe Uhura is the one that is taken over by V'ger, and then they find her body at the end or whatever to save her. Would that be better than just having these two kind of newcomer one-offs in the role?
I think the romance aspect definitely add, because with Ilea, they to search her memories to find because this is an exact replica of the original Ilea down to the individual memory patterns, and Decker serves as somewhat use there in trying to unearth these memories in order to form a bond, and
Freudian slip.
Yes, but I think that had to be played. I couldn't imagine that being Scotty and Uhura, for instance, the other romance that could have been.
Roddenberry wouldn't allow it. He was still, controlling the strings about whether there could be drama between the crew members. And so they were brought on, just like Bailey and some of the other bit part players in the original series were brought in just to throw a little bit of an element of drama so that the rest of the crew could come together around them. So.
Okay, I'll go for my bread. And no, Otto, it's not Chief DeFalco. It is, in fact, the one thing I hadn't noticed until...
a suitable replacement, she was.
No, there's one thing I didn't notice until this film, but it's the little guy in the space dock just cruising around in his little EV suit, just doing all sorts of flips.
He was everywhere.
He was getting chased down by the shuttle, he was riding around, he was doing flips, he was having a great time out there. It's just, that just pinged out to me as my bread. Okay, I have a small quiz.
So I actually want to bring something.
Yeah, go on.
So I actually want to push back on a point, and you say that like Decker serves a use in like the connection with Ilea, and that the romance gives him a function. I actually think that making the connection between Decker and Ilea, and therefore between Vija and humanity, like kind of romantically coded, actually kind of takes away from the message a little bit. Because, like, as Spock says, it's all about the simple feeling of just touch, of connection. It doesn't have to be romantic. And I feel like the fact that you could very easily just read it as, oh, well, it just needs to, like, to be crass, to just bang the creator and then it's fine. And it's like, I feel like it kind of would have been more poignant if it was about maybe even just two, like, crew members who, like, it could have been Decker and Light, and just, they were just friends. And then it's like, something about this near-death experience, or this actual death experience, is what kind of makes them go, well, I didn't get enough time with you when you were alive. You were my best friend. And like a yearning, and I understand like there's a yearning for what could have been, but it's so badly sketched out that it almost doesn't matter. Like the idea of it purely being a platonic connection would have been kind of more interesting and a bit more poignant to me if it was just a case of I lost someone that I mattered to me, but it being romantic almost kind of makes it feel like it's just checking off a box of like, oh, it's Star Trek, got to have like a romantic angle. I feel like it kind of would have been better if that hadn't been there.
I feel like it's a product of like 70s and 80s filmmaking. Is like, you got to have a romance in there.
Potentially.
That is the plot. Is the starstruck lovers literally lost to time, and you talk about unfulfilled, potential, and then there is an unfulfilled romance there that kind of gets explored a little bit more with Troy and Riker, because that is the direct analog for those characters, pretty much.
Yeah.
The first officer and the counselor. But yeah, I kind of see what you're saying. I feel like
Well, yeah, because like even in Farpoint, you get more context for why Riker and Troy broke up than you do for Ilea and Decker. Like he just left. Why?
It's not like they didn't have the screen
Literally, why? Yeah, exactly. It's just like if you are going to make it romantic, elaborate on that fact.
Yeah.
Too old.
Well, that's ironic you say that, because I will bang the drum forever, push back against the Spurk relationship. I think close friends that have a deep connection, who can love each other platonically, is such a valuable thing. And to reduce it to, they want to bang each other. It's like, no, just let, if they want to do that on screen, fine, then we go with that. But just let it be like a super loving, close friendship as it is. So...
Yeah, so I think there would have been strength in letting it be platonic. Yeah. I also want to pick up on something else, which is like, so this is a Phase 2 script that got retrofitted. So, forgive my ignorance, but there are 3 characters here who were clearly meant to be slotted into existing places. You had Ilea, Decker, and Sonak. And I think Sonak was meant to be Zon.
Yeah, he was meant to be the guy that was on the relay station Epsilon 9. Feeling fine.
Yeah. Glad I went for this tangent just to get that back. Why would you go to the effort of even bringing these characters into the script where they have no place, and then killing all 3 of them off, or at least removing them from play?
Yeah.
It's like, is there some kind of obligation to the original writer?
No, I think the
oh, we had these.
yeah.
It's like, well, just change it because it sucks as it currently is.
The In Thy Image script, which is the Phase 2 script, got heavily modified once they said it was going to be a film. So then I think there are about 3 or 4 different drafts of different concepts that were going to be put forward. So I believe like the fact that Ilea and Decker would get wiped out and Sonak as well, that would eventually not actually happen. It would have been something else. You can find the original In Thy Image script actually on some. I might actually have it in a book over there.
Well, yeah, no, I totally believe that.
Yeah.
If it was a script, this wouldn't have happened. But it's like, it's not that script. It is this script. It's the movie script. So why do these characters? What purpose does Sonak solve other than to die?
Yeah,
he
did
literally
kind
has one scene.
Yeah, he was kind of more like that and the wormhole scene were more like points to prove that like the Enterprise isn't quite ready yet, and Jim's being a bit arrogant, sending him out a bit too early. But yeah, you are right. They're both kind of pointless.
That's the problem.
To do. Yeah.
Well, that's because the Enterprise being like badly operational doesn't even come up when they come to Vija. The Enterprise is suddenly working completely fine when they get there. It's like, well,
Sky's a miracle
what's the
worker.
point then?
So I'll say, because I called out when we watched along, I like that they drag out the Spock reveal, and so he's kind of the placeholder. He dies, and then they throw in, I think, a smart line about I'd like his replacement to be Vulcan too, and that's letting the audience know, okay, Spock is coming, just hang on. It kind of builds the anticipation, and then when he does come aboard, it means a little bit more. Like Dan said, we get, Uhura's happy to see him. McCoy already had his welcome scene. Now Spock gets his welcome scene. It's it's kind of the A-team bring everyone aboard thing. So they could have just had him on at the start. I think it's better that they delayed that a little bit to let him have his own moment.
Oh no, I absolutely think that like that's arguably like as close as the movie really gets to an emotional crux. It's just a case of you could have just had them go, well, we don't have a science officer who's rated for this design, a line of dialogue that exists in the movie, and go, well, shit, we need to go. We just Decker, you'll double. Like you don't need to have this character who is in this role then die. You can just not have the character. He doesn't serve an actual function really. Like he doesn't reinforce some other greater theme.
What does he need to do to prove he's human? As Worf said, die.
No, but I thought an even more pointless, egregious scene was the fucking wormhole out of nowhere.
Yes.
Then we blow up a rock and the wormhole's gone and we never mention it again. It's like, what just happened?
Gotta have an excuse to fire those phasers.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the only, apart from the photon
torpedo. Wouldn't work, Dan.
Torpedo. Anyway, fun quiz for you guys, very quickly. Other than the 7 cast members who are in all 6 films, who are the 2 other actors that have been in this film? Auto's disqualified because he's read Memory Alpha. The only actors to appear in both this film, the original series, and this film and the Undiscovered Country. So, other than the first of the main 7 cast members, who are the only 2 actors that appear in this film and the Undiscovered Country?
So it's Rand and Chapel, right?
You got one of them.
Close.
Yeah, because I don't think Rand is in Undiscovered Country.
Stars, you even called out one of them during the watch along.
We did.
Did I?
Da, 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 da,
Mark Leonard.
Leonard.
So yeah, Grace Lee Whitney and Mark Leonard were the only actors that appeared in the Undiscovered Country and this film, but didn't appear in any of the other ones. Okay, gentlemen, how about, and this I feel like this might be quite lopsided, but
the best advice I can give you is to just be yourself.
You're the worst thing that ever happened to Zek. You're the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Actually, that's the second best piece of advice.
In fact, you're the worst thing that ever happened to the entire Ferengi Alliance.
That's 2001.
Needs to do that. Welcome to Best and Worst, the section of the show where we go and try and be partial and unfair and not rag on this film at all. I'm going to go first. It's my film and I can play how the way I want to. My best moment. Thumbs up. My best moment is just, and I've gone first because I want to steal this, is just the pure visual effects. I love the fact this is pre-CG and it looks gorgeous. I love the miniatures. The Klingon ships look amazing. The Enterprise looks gorgeous. The space dock's great.
Mm.
The Vija practical effects, as well as like the matte paintings, the weird lens flare effects they did. Just visually, this film is a treat to watch, and that's another one of the reasons I like watching it, because, and again, like I've said, I fall asleep to this film a lot, and it's easy to do because it's a film you don't have to think about too hard. As we've said, there's not a lot of dialogue. You can put it on and you can switch off and just enjoy the visual journey, and another reason I kind of really like this film, as well as like the human journey and all that. So that's my best. I'm gonna defer my worst, because I'm going to give you guys, I want to see what you guys come up with before I give you my worst, because I feel like there's quite a range. I'm not exactly going to be spoiled for choice. So Dan, why don't you give me your best worst?
I guess my best moment is probably the little bits of Vulcan lore that we got. You know, being on the planet, being able to see the planet in what eventually is how we're going to remember it, just with the red tint and the especially in the special edition, the Titanic characters holding the Vulcan sword and everything, just really. But even in the original version of the movie, just really an interesting way to set the tone. They did a similar amount of lore building with the Klingons, but not enough. We only got a few minutes at the top of the film with them. But learning more about the Kulinar Purge and seeing how much it really meant to Spock initially, you know, was kind of, you know, I think that added a lot to the lore, and something they drew upon deeply. I mean, the entirety of Discovery is tangentially based around Vulcan lore, and so it all kind of starts here. We got bits and pieces in the original series, but a lot of it was just done for show and for, you know, for a good fight scene here and there. Worst moment, I think. So I criticized this movie for only having like 3 comedic beats in the entire thing. It's we get Chekhov's little thing in the beginning,
Absolutely.
and we get the oh yeah moment, and at the very end, Kirk's just that away. You know, that's the last one that we get. So I think my worst moment is one that you know, that if they were going to try to combine tones and really give us the wonder, give us the excitement, but also give us a little bit of comic relief. I think that those 3 beats just didn't do enough. So I'm going to choose all 3 of them as the worst moments. They were just awkwardly interjected and didn't really do much for the overall feel of the movie.
Man, wait till we watch Insurrection.
I love Insurrection.
I love Insurrection too. Stars, go on.
My best moment is, I'm surprised it hasn't been cited yet already. It's the scene in sickbay with Spock recovering. It's that with a bullet. It's the only part of the movie where I look at it and I am utterly engrossed. Like, that is supreme character drama. That is Star Trek. That is Kirk and Spock. Nimoy and Shatner are both just killing it. It's kind of worth the price of admission alone. Like, if I had to do like a super cut of all the bits that I think are like most essential, if you want to know about it, it's like it'd be that, the wormhole scene for funsies, probably some of the Vulcan bits, and like the climax, maybe a few other bits and pieces. But like, that's the emotional crux of the movie. It's easily the closest it gets to being truly great in my mind. If the entire movie were on that level of philosophical self-reflection on what it truly means to be human, in that it means to connect and to reach out to those who are unlike you and that are like you. Like Dan said, like that's like a massive part of like even Discovery, like season 2's finale hinges upon like Spock learning that about reaching out to someone who is unlike you. And there's so many ways to do that and to develop that theme. Like, I think this could easily have eclipsed Wrath of Khan if it had just drilled in on that theme and blown out and properly interwoven it into every aspect. As it is, it feels almost kind of orphaned in the rest of the movie.
To reinforce Otto's point, Spock should have bonded with V'ger 6. That would have been an interesting climax. Anyways, continue.
That'd be interesting. No, you were good. Worst moment.
So, while you're thinking, sorry, that best moment, that's kind of the turning point after he has that interaction where he starts to find his humanity a little bit again. Jim, I
Yeah.
should have known, and he smiles a little bit. And that kind of starts the arc, and even though they don't follow through, that's kind of like the point.
Yeah, okay, I'm probably just gonna go for like it's meme worthy, and I think it is actually fairly effective in its own right, and it kind of belongs to be in a different movie. The worst moment is the transporter accident because it has no place in this movie. This is a movie that like inadvertently proves McCoy right about the dangers of space and why you shouldn't ever use a fucking transporter. And then they forcibly beam him up in like the very next scene.
Yeah.
It's like, madam, you are still cleaning up the guts and bits and pieces of the thing that died there like 5 minutes ago. I am not getting on that thing.
It's like a plane has just crashed, but it'll be fine. We'll just put the engines on another plane. We'll just send it back up again. You'll be fine.
I don't remember transporter beams being this stinky. It was weird.
That's what Barkley was seeing in.
Do you think they just stepped on the same pad the other end? They just sort of like someone there's a squeegee just wiping off as McCoy's getting on.
Yeah, it's like that bit at the beginning of Discovery Season 3 with Gene, where he's like that little intern who's like cleaning up all the biohazard bits of Leland. Yeah, that's exactly what it was like. It has no place being in this movie. This is not a movie about the dangers of space travel. This is a movie about the majesty of the human experience and the beauty of the unknown. It should not be punctuated at like the 45-minute mark by two people being fused together and dying in a horrible sci-fi accident. It doesn't fit at all. And I think it's in a better movie, sure. If you really want to up the stakes and establish that anyone can die, cool. But not in this movie. It just doesn't fit, not one bit.
Well, I think the timing was on purpose. He relieves Decker. Decker tells him, "You're not rated. You don't have the experience with this Enterprise that I do." So next scene, transport accident happens on Kirk's watch. And then the scene after he gets lost in the fucking hallway. So it's emphasizing that Decker was right in that case, that maybe he shouldn't be in command, but then they don't follow through in any capacity.
That's the problem.
Then he's just the captain again, and everything goes fine.
And they repeat it
So
with
it's
the
that
like,
makes
as
it-
well.
Yeah.
They want to show that he's not prepared, but then there's no consequence to that. So
Yeah, so they essentially died in a senseless act of cruelty by the writers for nothing. Like, if it had come to something, sure, but they had that moment. Do we have any casualty reports to Starfleet? Oh, two. Decker and Ilea, the report was missing. What about the two people who died on the other end of that transport pod? Are they
technically, they got beamed back to the space station. So that's they can handle that.
Oh, it's a liability issue. I understand. The Enterprise's insurance remains perfectly intact.
Wow. Go Auto.
All right, my worst. I actually didn't mind the pacing, and I didn't mind them floating through and looking at all the stuff. But I will say, the fact that it's all so symmetric on the axis, everything is 6 points. It felt like I was floating through a kaleidoscope the entire time. Give me a little bit of difference. They could have, all right, so the little torpedo that they fire that fizzles everything blue and then disappears it. All right, if they're assimilating it, if they're gaining knowledge, as we're floating through the belly of V'ger, show me the Klingon derelict ship.
Oh, yeah.
Show me the giant.
Yeah. They kind of did that with Spock when he went through. They showed you like the planets, then the Armagosa space. No, Armagosa. That's a different show. The Epsilon 9 one,
Epsilon 9.
and they didn't show the Klingon one, but the implication was that this was the big storage vat for all this stuff.
But I
so
mean, if you're looking for
sure.
stuff, if you're looking for dialogue for your main characters to talk about, that's it. Because we watched it happen just ahead of time. So
Yeah.
a little more differentiation would have helped break the monotony, I think. Best moment, McCoy beams aboard. He's got a head full of steam. Bones, there's a thing out there. Why is any object we don't understand called a thing headed this way? He doesn't break his sentence. I need you. Damn it, Bones, I need you badly. He doesn't belabor the point. He gets right to it, and Bones immediately acquiesces, permission to come aboard. And, if you hadn't seen the 100 or whatever, 90 episodes of TOS, you would get the point. But if you have seen all those, you get a bigger point. And then the scene carries more weight. And that, I think, is what people were waiting a decade. That's what they wrote in their fan campaign to see more of. And we had a few precious moments of it. Would have liked a little bit more.
Okay, I'll do my worst moment now, and I'm surprised you guys didn't pick up on it. It's the fucking uniforms. If you'd have had this film with the Wrath of Khan uniforms, you guys probably would have had I reckon there'd have been a bit more of a favourable opinion about it. But no, the uniforms definitely do a lot of heavy lifting to
We're not quite that superficial, but we're close.
No, I realise that. No,
I remembered more bell bottoms. I thought there were more bell bottoms in this movie. I guess.
I don't think we saw a lot of feet. But no,
there's more in the Monster Maroons, I think. Actually,
there's Kirk's uniform when he first steps off the shuttle, the Admiral's uniform. But as soon as he changes out of that, it's downhill. It's like a random beige with a weird who was it commented first and said, "Oh, I wonder what's in the little belt buckle pouch." Is it a bit of chapstick and a mint and a bit of hair gel? Just everything for the modern working Starfleet officer on the move. So yeah, definitely the uniforms. Okay, let's not belabor the point anymore. I think, gentlemen, I'll need to see your rating code.
I can show you my rating code.
Schiller rating 3.5.
Associational rating norm -3.
That's much too low a rating.
I was not accustomed to seeing an unsatisfactory rating on a member of my crew.
Gentlemen, how many Epsilon 9s you'll feel fine out of...
Nice.
Sorry, I've got to type this as I say it. You'll feel fine. Out of 10.
not irregular ones.
I really love the regular ones.
Oh, the regular ones.
Really
That's
got
also...
me.
Epsilon 9s you feel... Okay, no, irregular ones it is.
No, it's your movie.
No, I
got
like
fun.
irregular
You
ones.
got
I like
fun.
irregular ones more. It's irregular ones, definitely. I like that better. So, gentlemen, how many irregular ones out of 10 will you give this? Let's start with the auto. I'm intrigued.
Oh, fuck.
Stars hasn't had a chance to go first. We can throw it to
Oh,
Stars.
actually, good point. Actually, we'll do it. We'll butcher order. Stars, you go first.
My pre-rating was 5.5, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that I guess what? It's not like freaking Code of Honor where I gave it negative numbers because I feel like it actively damaged the franchise. So I think that the director's cut has absolutely improved my impression of the movie. So I'm actually going to upgrade from a 5.5 to a 6 irregular ones out of 10. It's still never going to be my go-to watch movie. It's just not what I look for in a Star Trek. That being said, I think that, a lot of the trimming has helped, and I think that it doesn't do enough offensive me for me to dislike it, and I think that I can absolutely respect its historic and cultural value, especially in the terms of the Star Trek sphere. It's just not my vibe. Maybe if I was more of a TOS head, if I was more of a tosser, I would maybe vibe more with it. Yeah, exactly. I'd vibe more with it, but as it is, it's I come down firmly in the Wrath of Khan is what actually saved the franchise. If you'd gone further down this route, I feel like you would have been spiraling into irrelevancy, especially as time progressed. It just wasn't what people were looking for, and there are too many missteps in here. But yeah, I think it's a perfectly cromulent movie. I think the director's cut does improve it, so I will give it 6 irregular ones out of 10.
6 irregular ones. Okay, auto.
I'm going to give this 5 irregular ones out of 10. I think the best quality of it is that I want to see it again to try to foment certain ideas. Spock cried, and I thought, I don't think Spock would cry there. And then I thought, why is Spock crying here? Maybe I should kind of want to pause and break down what's driving him to... Nothing offended me. In the movie itself, nothing offended me.
Yes.
Less said about the actor, the better.
See, I'm still... Can't even crystallize my thoughts.
You're percolating.
Still brewing.
But there were a handful of instances where I'm like, why don't they just do this instead? Things that would seemingly be obvious to sci-fi veterans. There weren't a lot of that's dumbs, but more why don't they just do that instead? So, the pacing was on the slow side, but you know what? I enjoyed that. Especially we did our Stranger World Season 3 review, when you go from character drama to character drama to character drama, character cut to cut to cut to cut, this let it breathe arguably too much, but I needed that after watching a lot of modern sci-fi. Yeah, so it's not that I want to cut things out, it's that I want to add more things alongside it to accentuate, to explain certain things. And it was certainly a visual feast. I enjoyed looking at it, except for the symmetry. That's a me thing. So I'm gonna go 5. Plenty of room for improvement, but it's not something I think I'd ever skip. I think it works well in the one slot of the movies.
Not a fan of the symmetry, but pick the most symmetrical grade.
Go on, Dad.
I'm saying the perfect number.
My turn?
Go for it.
All right. I was afraid of this movie. Just outright, just terrified to sit through over 2 hours of just meandering. It was really pleasant listening to all of your input, being able to experience it with you. I got a lot more out of this movie than I expected. I noticed a lot more than I think I would have just on my own. So the shared experience, and this pulls back to the shared experience of seeing things in a theater. It's a big difference seeing a motion picture in a theater when you're surrounded by maybe a friend you brought, a date you brought, a whole family of Star Trek people, versus just the solitary experience of watching it alone in your home. And this movie can deliver on both fronts, because I think, Otto, your idea of having a rewatch of this film, maybe on your own with all the lights turned down, it would be a completely different vibe, just experiencing it in that way. And that's fascinating to me. And I'm excited to rewatch also, just in exactly that way, to see how it drives me. I want to have my heart pulled in the direction of the movie on that rewatch. So I agree with Idle that there is a lot more to this film than meets the eye, and people criticize it unfairly based on the current state of Trek. But this is quite literally, with V'ger building a bridge to the Enterprise, this is a bridge from old sci-fi to new sci-fi, and there are elements that work on both fronts. And they really did make a transitional film that still is watchable and creates an experience. It's a vibe. So I'm gonna have to sign off here. This is fine Epsilon 9 signing off for the evening. Trying to get over to you, Irregular One, for your dulcet tones and your rating. Irregular One will rate this 7.8 out of 10 irregular ones.
Oh wow, amazing. Okay, I mean, you guys all know, and anyone regular watching knows how I feel about this film. I've spoken about it a few times. Like, I love this era of science fiction films. We've talked about Alien, we've talked about Close Encounters, we've talked about Star Wars, we've talked about 2001: Space Odyssey. Hard science fiction is something that's you love. I love reading like Asimovian novels. I love things that are a little bit more dry in science fiction. I love Battlestar Galactica. You know, some things that are a bit more hard sci-fi. And I know this does equate more into the fantastical, but combine that with the use of like miniatures, the use of like practical effects. There's not just a CG. It looks better than a lot of CG productions because it's not just a complete visual feast for the eyes. It's very deliberately gone, we're going to focus on like the Enterprise and the shots here. We're going to focus on V'ger's like meandering strange shapes as the Enterprise flies over it. It does what Star Trek should do to me, and that is explore the unknown. It does things that, TNG aside is a different beast entirely. We love TNG for different reasons. So, and DS9. But if I think about something like Voyager, or I think about anything like Discovery or Strange New Worlds, they don't do this on that level. They don't go to something unknown and just be awed at the wonder of it. They don't sort of go to something, come out the other side and really go, we don't know what just happened, but it was great, and we can kind of begin to sort of form an opinion or an understanding of it because it transcends the human journey. Something along those lines. It felt like it was Star Trek pushing that original kind of one of Gene Roddenberry's better qualities of doing something about pushing the human adventure, the unknown, looking into sort of that kind of adventure, and I love it for that. It has its flaws. Absolutely does have its flaws. Uniforms are terrible. The pacing is not great. There are a lot of legitimate complaints. There are definitely a lot of complaints that just seem to just jump on the bandwagon and go, oh, the slow motion picture, blah, blah, blah. Or just like, oh, it's one of the odd numbered films, so it must be terrible, and it's not. But there are some legitimate concerns about the movie, and some new concerns, new complaints that we've come up today, like watching it with you guys, I didn't really realise that the McCoy was as useless as he was in this film, or like some of the some of the arc pacings. Like I never realised that he wandered in and out of the bridge like 3 times looking for something to do. But I can't, I will never, like you say, I will always put the lights down and watch this film. It's a theatre experience, or it's something that you can try and replicate as close as you can. I like watching a film with the lights down and pretending I'm at the theatre. I want to watch something with the sound turned way up and then I'm really in the film. With this film, when you watch it, you can experience it in a way that you are there in the film. You are there exploring VG. You are there exploring the wonders of the unknown with the crew of the Enterprise. You are with them on this journey. And I really love that. And for all its complaints, I can't help but kind of love how unique it is as well in like the tapestry of all of the Star Trek shows. It does something different. And we should all learn from people that take risks and do things different, even if it doesn't work. This worked. It made money. Some people liked it. A lot of people didn't. That's not a problem. But it took a risk, and it did pay off, and it paved a way for Star Trek to be something else, and that worked slightly better, and that's fine. I think we should applaud things that are unique and different in their own different ways, just like me. I'm going to give this, for all its flaws, I'm going to give this an 8 irregular ones out of 10. I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10 because it's not a 10 out of 10 film, but I do love it. It's a personal favourite of mine, but I can appreciate the flaws for what they are.
It does feel very much like something we might see in season 4 of Strange New Worlds, where they want to try a little bit of everything. If they go with like 10 lines of dialogue for the whole episode and just float through a mass, I would not be surprised if they tried that.
Okay. Well, at the end of that epic review of our first Star Trek film, we didn't watch Section 31. That never happened because Stars needs to watch it with us. 6.7 irregular ones out of 10. Should we just see what we rated lower than that? You know what? It scores the same as... it scores better than Caretaker. It scores better than Encounter at Farpoint for us. Let's have a look. Better than Culus. But
it actually got a better rating than its IMDb. IMDb.
Yeah, 6.4 on IMDb.
Yeah.
But it was beaten
by.
To
compare, though.
Yeah, it was beaten by things like Blink of an Eye, A Broken Bow. We rated better than this, which I'm not sure I agree with that. Where No One Has Gone Before as well. So it kind of sits perfectly in the middle, kind of just random in that, nearly at the dreaded 7. Average 7, middle of the pack rating wise. How that works, I don't know.
Almost a bridge, you would say, between the best and the worst.
Indeed. A best of both worlds. I don't know if we've agreed what we're doing next. Have we come to a conclusion? I think we were talking about doing Wrath of Khan, but I don't know if we'd said anything yet.
I want Shy on for that.
Yeah, we want Shy for that one.
So if we have to find something else instead, I'm happy to pick a second round draft or cede it to someone else. We'll get to it. Awesome. But I want Shy for that. So,
any final words, gentlemen?
Nonetheless, you can expect a handpicked, high drafted pick for your next Trek Time experience.
Indeed.
True.
All right.
I demand.
Thank you, gentlemen. This has been great. Go on. Otto, you've been on the edge of saying something for like 5 minutes.
He's edging.
Just the ideas just flow through my brain. There's nothing more attractive in a relationship when your partner is really passionate about something. Could be something minutia or something important to them, or just, so. Not that I'm saying this makes you more attractive to me. What I'm saying is, I'm predisposed to like these selections more because they mean more to
It's
you
definitely
guys,
good to hear sort of stuff. I'm interested to find an episode that I don't like that I'd like to hear someone passionate about. Like, that would be interesting to me. So if someone out there does love Code of Honor, what's wrong with you? Anyway, we will see you soon. Keep an eye on our Discord and our YouTube schedule for all the following. So we will see you later. Live long, prosper, and ta-ra.